The Cedar Falls courthouse smelled faintly of polished wood and old paper, the kind of scent that made people feel both small and important at the same time. Outside, a thin drizzle had started, coating the brick steps with slick reflections of neon traffic lights. Inside, the courtroom hummed with low murmurs. Families, a few journalists, and court staff, all waiting for what they assumed would be an ordinary proceeding. It was a custody hearing, nothing dramatic, at least that was what everyone thought. At the front row, a tiny figure sat in stark contrast to the sterile seriousness of the room. 7-year-old Lily Green was perched on the edge of a chair, her legs swinging, her small hands fidgeting with the hem of her dress. Beside her, Halo, a golden retriever with a thick, shining coat, lay perfectly still. His large brown eyes were fixed on Lily, his ears moving subtly with every twitch of her fingers. To anyone else, it looked like the quiet attention of a well-trained dog. But anyone who knew better could tell there was something deeper, a connection, almost electric, between the girl and the dog. The judge entered at exactly 9:02 a.m., her black robe sweeping behind her, her expression unreadable. Judge Margaret Willis was the type of jurist who rarely showed emotion, who rarely allowed any courtroom theatrics to distract her. Her gaze scanned the room and lingered briefly on Lily, then moved on without comment. But as she settled behind the bench and rapped her gavel once sharply, the murmurs died immediately. Everyone knew this meant business. The attorneys began presenting their opening statements, and the audience settled into polite attentiveness. The mother, Caroline Green, shifted in her seat, eyes nervously following her daughter. Caroline had been hesitant to bring Halo into the courthouse, fearing some legal objection, but her lawyer had assured her it was essential. Lily's safety depended on the dog. Still, watching the child fidget at the front of the room, Caroline felt a pang of anxiety she couldn't shake. Something about the way Halo kept glancing at Lily made her stomach tighten. Lily's small hand twitched subtly, Halo's ears flicked. At first, no one noticed, but then the dog shifted, lifting his head slightly, nostrils flaring, tail stiffening just a fraction. He let out a soft whine that seemed almost human. The judge's eyes, sharp and discerning, caught it. She paused mid-note on her legal pad, her pen hovering in the air. Something was off, though she couldn't yet identify it. The first attorney droned on about custody rights, legal precedents, and the dog's role as a service animal. His voice was steady, but the tension in the room was slowly shifting from procedural to taut. The jury, a mix of local residents, shifted uneasily in their seats, picking up on something they couldn't articulate. Every so often their gaze flicked toward the small girl and her dog. What were they doing? Why was Halo so alert? Lily's fingers twitched again, 3 quick taps on the edge of her chair, almost imperceptible. Halo's posture stiffened, and he slowly rose to his paws. The judge's eyes widened slightly. She had seen signals like this before, but never from someone so small. She had watched trained paramedics use these subtle gestures to indicate medical emergencies, gestures that were usually taught only to adults. But here in her courtroom, a 7-year-old was using one with flawless precision. Caroline noticed the judge's sudden pause and felt her heart leap into her throat. How could anyone know? Had the judge seen what she thought she'd hidden? Caroline's mind raced. She had been careful to never disclose the full extent of Lily's medical condition in court. Only a few people knew the true danger. Lily had a rare neurological disorder that caused sudden, unpredictable autonomic shutdowns. Halo was trained to detect the chemical changes in her body seconds before an episode occurred, and to respond immediately. That knowledge had saved Lily countless times at home. But here, in public, with strangers and legal eyes, the risk of exposure made Caroline's hands shake. Objection! The attorney's sharp voice cut through the tension, bringing Caroline back to the present. But the judge's attention was still partially elsewhere, focused on the small, coded gestures that Lily continued to repeat. Halo's whine grew slightly louder, almost insistent, and he nudged closer to the girl. The courtroom fell silent again. Even the murmuring media and the fidgeting bailiff seemed to sense the shift in atmosphere. People were instinctively drawn to the connection between the tiny girl and the dog that now stood protectively at her side. There was a moment, a heartbeat of tension, when everyone felt that something critical was about to happen, though none could articulate why. The judge cleared her throat and leaned slightly forward. "Ms. Green," she said in her calm, authoritative tone, "is there something you wish to disclose regarding your daughter's needs?" Caroline froze. Her lips parted, but no words came out immediately. She was terrified that any admission would be used against her, that the custody battle might tip violently in her ex-husband's favor. And yet she could not ignore the urgency written across Halo's stance, the intensity of his gaze, the trembling in Lily's small frame. Something was coming, something urgent, and the judge had just put her on the spot. Lily's fingers twitched again. This time it was slower, a circle traced in the air above her leg. Halo's ears pricked. His tail stiffened. He stepped closer, pressing himself gently but firmly against her side. The soft whine turned into a growl, low and protective. The judge's pen stopped moving entirely. Her eyes widened, and a faint, uncharacteristic flush appeared across her cheeks. She recognized the movement instantly, though she couldn't believe it. This was a signal, one used by medical alert teams, a prelude to a life-threatening event. And yet, it was coming from a 7-year-old child in the front row of her courtroom. No one in the room fully realized what was happening yet, but the tension had thickened to a palpable, almost choking weight. People leaned forward in their seats, unconsciously holding their breath. Even the photographer in the back paused, camera raised, instinctively waiting. Something was about to happen, and it wasn't procedural. Halo let out another low whine and nudged Lily's shoulder with his nose. She responded with a barely perceptible nod, her small hand making the emergency signal one final time. The judge's eyes darted between the girl's face and the dog, disbelief mixing with dawning concern. This wasn't just training. It was instinct, precision, and possibly danger. Then, as if on cue, Halo suddenly straightened, his body tense, muscles coiled. He emitted a sharp single bark that cut through the silence like a gunshot. Every head in the courtroom snapped toward the source. The bailiff stepped forward, ready to restrain the dog, but Halo ignored him. He pressed firmly against Lily's knees, blocking any attempt to move her. The judge mid-note froze. Her gavel hand trembled slightly. She whispered almost to herself, "No, it can't be." And then it hit her, the sickening realization. She had seen this signal before. It wasn't a warning of misbehavior. It was a warning of imminent medical danger. And Lily was using it now. The courtroom seemed to vanish around her. All that remained was the girl, the dog, and the silent, urgent understanding between them. Every person present felt the invisible tension, the charge in the air that something critical was about to unfold. Caroline's hands gripped the edge of her chair. Her stomach knotted. She could barely breathe. She had never intended for anyone to witness this, especially not a courtroom filled with strangers. Yet here it was, unavoidable and raw. The secret of her daughter's condition, the bond with Halo, the silent warning that only the girl and her dog could understand. And then Lily's eyes widened slightly, and the tiniest shiver ran through her body. Halo's ears shot up. The judge leaned forward on her bench, voice caught somewhere between authority and shock. The next second would decide everything. Because whatever was coming, it was fast, and nobody in the courtroom was ready. The courtroom held its collective breath. Judge Margaret Willis stared at Lily, her pen poised midair, gavel forgotten. That tiny figure in the front row, fingers twitching with coded precision, had triggered something deep in her memory. A warning signal she had seen only once, years ago, during specialized medical training for paramedics. It was a gesture meant for life-or-death emergencies, a silent cue to prepare for a sudden neurological collapse, and it was being executed by a 7-year-old. Caroline Green's heart raced uncontrollably. She gripped the armrests of her chair so tightly that her knuckles turned white. She had always known that Lily's episodes were unpredictable and dangerous, but she had never imagined that the court itself would witness the first sign of one in real time. Halo, attuned to every subtlety in the girl's movements, had stiffened beside her. His low growl vibrated through his chest, a warning as much to Caroline as to anyone else in the room. Something was coming, and fast. The judge's sharp eyes tracked every minuscule motion of Lily's fingers. One hand tapped 3 times lightly on her lap, then traced a slow circle in the air. Halo's ears twitched at each signal, his stance rigid. The judge could hardly believe what she was seeing. She had never seen a child communicate with a service animal in this precise manner. In her entire career, she had only ever seen adults and trained professionals use this system. How had this little girl learned it? And more importantly, why was she using it now? Caroline tried to stay calm, but sweat beaded on her forehead. Her mind raced, replaying everything that had led to this moment. Lily's condition, a rare neurological disorder, had caused her body to shut down without warning since she was a toddler. Halo had been trained meticulously to detect the faint chemical and physical changes in her body that preceded an episode, changes so subtle they were invisible to everyone else. The training had saved Lily more times than Caroline could count. But she had never revealed the full extent of the training to the court. She had feared that doing so would complicate custody proceedings or even jeopardize her claim to keep Halo. And now, the signals were happening in public, right in front of a judge, a jury, and strangers. Caroline's stomach churned as she realized there was no turning back. Whatever happened next would leave an impression on everyone in that room, and there was no script to follow. Suddenly, Halo's head snapped up, ears alert, body taut as a spring. He stepped closer to Lily, pressing his broad chest against her legs. The soft whine that had been building escalated into a sharper, more urgent sound. The judge, unable to look away, felt a shiver run down her spine. She whispered under her breath, This is a medical alert signal." The murmurs in the courtroom began to rise. People shifted in their seats, confused by the intensity of the moment. One of the jurors, a woman in her mid-30s, leaned forward and whispered to her neighbor, "Is the dog reacting to the child?" "Yes," the neighbor replied, his voice tense. "Something's not right." The judge's voice, calm but commanding, finally cut through the tension. "Ms. Green," she said, her eyes narrowing, "are you aware of any medical situation your daughter is currently experiencing?" Caroline swallowed hard. Her throat felt dry, her lips trembling. She knew she couldn't lie. The truth was too visible in the flickering signals, the dog's tense movements, the subtle changes in Lily's breathing. "Yes, Your Honor," she admitted, her voice barely audible. She's having a warning sign for an episode. Halo is trained to alert me to help her." The courtroom fell into stunned silence. The judge's eyes widened and the tension in the room thickened. Journalists jotted furiously in their notebooks, some raising their cameras just in case something unfolded. The bailiff shifted uneasily, unsure whether to intervene, and the attorneys froze mid-motion, glancing at one another in disbelief. Then it happened. Halo stepped forward with a precision that made everyone in the courtroom instinctively step back. He positioned himself half in Lily's lap, half beside her, blocking any attempts to move her. His body was rigid, muscles coiled like a spring. The low growl emanating from his chest turned into a short bark, a warning and a call for immediate attention. The judge instinctively leaned forward, eyes scanning Caroline and the child. Caroline's hands shook violently as she whispered, "She's going into an episode. It's coming faster than I expected." The judge's mouth opened slightly, and her hand trembled over the gavel. She realized with growing horror that this was no ordinary courtroom drama. This was a medical emergency unfolding in real time, and no one in the room knew how to react, except for the little girl and her dog. Paramedics were on site for unrelated reasons, attending another hearing nearby, but none had expected to be needed in this courtroom. One of them, a tall man with a calm demeanor, noticed Halo's stance and Lily's trembling. His eyes widened as he recognized the signs immediately. He stepped forward but stopped when Halo growled again, low and protective. "It's okay," Caroline said quickly, trying to soothe both the paramedic and the dog. "Halo knows what to do." The judge leaned back in her chair, heart hammering, trying to reconcile her disbelief with what her eyes were telling her. The signals, the taps, the circle, the subtle hand gestures were all precise, calculated, and unmistakable. Halo was responding perfectly. The child was giving instructions in code. And the code, the judge realized with a mix of awe and fear, could mean the difference between life and death. "Everyone remain calm," Caroline instructed, voice firm despite the terror in her eyes. "Halo is trained for this, just let him help her." The dog pressed closer to Lily, shifting slightly to brace her as her small body began to slump forward. The judge, feeling a surge of helplessness she had rarely experienced in her career, gripped the edge of her bench. She had overseen hundreds of trials, confrontations, and disputes, but never a scene where a 7-year-old girl communicated a life-saving emergency to her dog with such subtle authority, and the dog obeyed with unwavering precision. Lily's lips quivered. Her small fingers twitched one final time, sending the ultimate emergency signal. Halo stiffened instantly, barking sharply. The judge inhaled sharply, realizing that whatever was coming next would leave no room for error. The paramedic nearest the bench instinctively readied his equipment, though even he paused in awe at the synchronized precision of the child and her dog. The tension in the room reached a peak. Every eye was on Lily and Halo. Every heartbeat in that courtroom seemed amplified. The air felt charged, like the moment before a storm breaks. People leaned forward, unable to look away, caught between fear and fascination. And then, in a movement almost too fast for the eye to track, Halo's body tensed even further. He pressed his chest firmly against Lily, steadying her as her head dipped slightly. Caroline's gasp was audible. The judge's eyes widened, her mouth opening slightly, caught between authority and disbelief. She whispered again, to no one in particular, "She's about to collapse." A hush fell over the courtroom. The only sounds were the faint tapping of Lily's fingers and Halo's low growl, a strange symphony of life, danger, and instinct. Everyone else in the room seemed frozen, unsure whether to act or remain passive, caught in a suspenseful limbo that could shift in an instant. Caroline gritted her teeth, trying to stay calm, trying to trust that Halo would handle it. The child's coded signals had warned them, prepared them, but now the final moment approached. Everyone in the courtroom felt it, though none could fully understand how a girl so small could command such precision from a creature so large, nor the depth of the bond that allowed her to survive moments like this. And as Halo pressed closer, ready to act, the judge realized the terrifying truth. This wasn't a courtroom anymore. It was the edge of a life-or-death moment, and the outcome depended entirely on the little girl's silent signal and the dog's unwavering instinct. The courtroom seemed to freeze. Every heartbeat echoed in the cavernous room. Lily's small body shivered, and her fingers twitched one last time, an almost imperceptible final code. Halo, attuned to every nuance of her signal, stiffened completely, his golden coat gleaming under the harsh fluorescent lights. His ears pressed forward, nostrils flaring, muscles coiled like springs. No one else in the room fully understood what was happening, but a ripple of unease spread through the spectators. Caroline Green's chest tightened painfully. She had prepared for this moment countless times at home, but the sterile formality of a courtroom made everything feel amplified. The pressure of eyes, pens, cameras, and law books pressed down like invisible weights. She gritted her teeth, whispering, "Halo now. Protect her." The dog responded instantly. He leapt into action with precision that seemed almost supernatural, pressing firmly against Lily's chest to stabilize her. The child's body began to slump sideways, a slight tremor running through her frame. The soft whine that had been building from Halo transformed into a low, urgent bark that echoed sharply through the courtroom. The sound was startling, almost primal, and every head turned in unison toward the scene. The bailiff moved to intervene, hand on his baton, thinking it was a breach of courtroom decorum. But Halo ignored him entirely, growling lowly, eyes locked on Lily as if willing the man to understand that this was no ordinary moment. The bailiff froze, suddenly aware that this was a situation beyond his control. Judge Margaret Willis's gavel sat abandoned on the bench. Her eyes, wide with disbelief, tracked every movement, every subtle sign. She had encountered medical emergencies before, but never one unfolding with such intricate synchronicity between a child and an animal. Her voice shook, though she tried to maintain her judicial composure. "Do not move anyone, stay calm," she said, more to herself than to anyone else. Lily's breathing had become shallow, each inhale sounding like a whisper against the polished wood of the courtroom. Caroline's hands trembled violently. She wanted to scream, to grab her daughter, but Halo's body was the only thing preventing Lily from toppling completely. The dog's head rested lightly on her lap, yet every muscle in his frame was tense and ready, a living shield. A paramedic in the gallery, attending a separate case, recognized the signs immediately. He pushed past the initial shock and shouted, "She's going into an episode. Stand back." But even as he moved forward, Halo's protective stance forced him to pause. The dog's growl deepened, a warning that only reinforced the seriousness of the moment. The courtroom erupted in murmurs. Some people whispered questions, others sat frozen, unable to comprehend what was happening. A few journalists raised their cameras, but the judge's sharp glare reminded them that decorum mattered even in crisis. Caroline's heart pounded violently. She whispered, "Stay with me, Lily, stay with me." Halo's instincts had gone beyond training. His paws pressed gently but firmly against the girl, stabilizing her, adjusting as her body began to tremor uncontrollably. The dog's eyes met Caroline's briefly, almost as if seeking confirmation, reassurance that he was doing the right thing. Caroline nodded, tears blurring her vision. "Yes, yes, you're doing everything right," she whispered, her voice breaking. The judge rose slightly, leaning forward, her voice catching in her throat. "Everyone step back," she commanded. "Give her space. Let the dog work." She felt a mixture of awe, fear, and disbelief. This child and her dog were operating in perfect synchrony, a silent language that no one else in the room could decode fully. Then the moment escalated further. Lily's small body slumped entirely to one side, and her eyes rolled slightly, a sign of neurological stress that made Caroline gasp aloud. Halo immediately reacted, pushing his body beneath her in a controlled manner, lifting and stabilizing her torso with the precision of someone who had practiced this maneuver thousands of times. The soft whine turned into a low, rhythmic bark, an audible signal to anyone watching that the emergency was ongoing. The paramedic finally stepped closer, assessing the child quickly. His professional eyes widened in shock. "This dog, he's performing emergency stabilization," he muttered under his breath. "I've trained adults to do this, but this is unbelievable." He gestured for others to clear the space. The judge, voice steady but tense, reinforced the command. The jury leaned forward, spellbound. The media cameras recorded every second, the images of a 7-year-old girl and her golden retriever forming a tableau of courage, instinct, and sheer survival. The room had shifted from courtroom procedure to an emergency theater. Caroline's mind raced as she realized how delicate the situation was. If Halo failed to stabilize Lily, the consequences could be catastrophic. But the dog's every movement exuded confidence and training, an unspoken promise that he would not fail. She whispered again, soft but urgent, "You've got this, I trust you." Lily's fingers twitched one last time, almost imperceptibly. It was a subtle code, a silent instruction that the episode was peaking. Halo's ears pricked, his entire body responding to the tiny, almost invisible cue. The dog adjusted his stance, pressing against the girl in a manner that seemed to defy his size, providing both support and protection, creating a human-animal shield. The judge, heart hammering, whispered, "How is this possible? How does a child command precision like this?" She had no answer, only awe. The subtle but powerful coordination between child and dog had halted the immediate threat, buying critical time. Then the courtroom fell silent in a way that made everyone aware of the fragility of life. The child's body trembled. The dog remained steadfast. For the first time, the weight of the situation hit Caroline fully. The courtroom could have been a place of judgment, but it had become a place of survival. Halo's devotion, Lily's silent command, and the trust between them had turned a potential tragedy into a moment of miraculous intervention. But even in that moment, the danger had not passed. Lily's breathing remained shallow, her pulse weak, and the signals she had sent indicated that the episode could escalate again at any second. The paramedic stepped closer cautiously, assessing the situation, while the judge's hands hovered over the bench, unsure if she should intervene or merely witness. The room seemed to hold its collective breath. Every person in that courtroom understood on some deep, instinctive level that they were witnessing something extraordinary, something beyond law, beyond procedure, beyond expectation. And then, as if confirming the tension in the air, Halo let out a sharp bark, his body rigid and eyes wide. Lily's fingers twitched in the faintest, most deliberate motion, a signal no one else could read. The judge's eyes widened further as recognition hit her, and her voice caught. "She's giving him another signal, in the middle of the episode." Caroline's face was pale, beads of sweat on her forehead. She whispered, "Yes, she's telling him what to do. He knows, he trusts her. Please just let him do his job." Halo, responding instantly, adjusted his stance again. His paws shifted slightly, chest pressing firmly, head tilting to maintain optimal support for Lily. Every muscle was tuned perfectly to her needs. The tension in the courtroom thickened further. The audience, the jury, the lawyers, even the judge herself, seemed unable to move, frozen by the intensity of what they were witnessing. At that exact moment, the entire courtroom understood. This was no ordinary dog. This was no ordinary child. This was a partnership that had been forged in life-and-death circumstances, now unfolding in full view of the legal system. And what happened next would determine whether Lily emerged safely, or if the fragile thread of control she wielded through her dog would snap entirely. The courtroom held a breath it could no longer sustain. Lily's small body began to tremble violently, her delicate frame quivering as if caught in an invisible storm. Halo stiffened beside her, every muscle taut and ready. Caroline Green felt a wave of terror wash over her, icy and unrelenting. She had seen these episodes before, but never so sudden, so public, so raw. Every instinct screamed at her to leap forward, but Halo was already taking action. The first tremor escalated into a full collapse. Lily's head dipped sideways, her eyelids fluttering in a weak attempt to remain conscious. Halo reacted instantly, planting his massive paws on either side of her, creating a protective barrier. He pressed his chest firmly against her torso, adjusting his weight as her body slumped unpredictably. The dog's growl deepened, low and warning, vibrating through the floorboards and into the hearts of everyone present. The mother gasped, a sharp, raw sound that echoed in the suddenly silent courtroom. "Lily," she cried, her voice cracking with panic, but the dog's eyes met hers, steady and unyielding, as if to say, "Trust me. She's safe for now." The judge, Margaret Willis, was frozen, her gavel abandoned on the bench. Her usually composed demeanor shattered as she watched the precise coordination between child and dog. She had never witnessed a living, breathing emergency orchestrated with such synchronization. Her eyes darted from the child to Halo, back to Caroline, and then around the courtroom. Witnesses, attorneys, and even the jury were glued in stunned silence, incapable of comprehending the extraordinary scene unfolding before them. Paramedics, previously spectators to the drama, rushed forward, their professional instincts kicking in. But even they hesitated, recognizing that Halo's protective stance was not just obedience, it was life-saving precision. The dog nudged Lily gently with his nose, adjusting her head to prevent airway obstruction, pressing his massive body in a delicate balance to stabilize her torso. Every movement was purposeful, every reaction perfectly timed. Caroline's hands shook uncontrollably. She whispered urgently, "Halo, steady, please." Her voice was barely audible, but Halo seemed to understand. He shifted slightly, leaning into her daughter, creating a living splint that allowed Lily's body to remain upright enough to breathe, even as her limbs trembled uncontrollably. The judge finally found her voice, though it trembled. "Clear the area. Everyone step back." Her authoritative tone cut through the tension, but no one dared move too close or too far, unsure of how best to protect both child and dog. Lily's lips quivered, a soft whimper escaping as her body convulsed slightly. Halo pressed closer, low growl resonating with urgency. He lifted her head gently, ensuring that her airway remained open, even as the tremors shook her small frame. Caroline's tears fell freely now, streaming down her cheeks, as she watched the dog perform a maneuver that no ordinary animal could execute. A young paramedic, barely out of training, whispered in awe, "I've never seen a dog perform emergency stabilization like this, not even with adult patients." His partner, older and more experienced, nodded grimly, eyes wide as he assessed the situation. "This isn't just training," he murmured. "This is instinct and understanding beyond any protocol." The courtroom was silent, the air heavy with tension. Even the journalists lowered their cameras, unable to focus on capturing a story when life itself seemed to hang in balance. The judge's eyes were riveted on Lily and Halo, the gavel in her hand trembling slightly as she realized the severity of the emergency. And then the unthinkable happened. Lily's body began to go slack, the tremors reaching a critical peak. Her fingers twitched one last time, a faint signal that only Halo could interpret. The dog stiffened, coiling his body beneath her like a protective shield. He pressed his chest firmly against hers, distributing his weight with precision to prevent any further collapse. The soft growl escalated into a sharp bark, urgent and commanding. Everyone instinctively took a step back. Caroline whispered, "You've got her, Halo. You've got her." She felt a trembling relief as the dog's actions mirrored her words, a perfect, silent partnership that seemed almost superhuman. The paramedics moved closer cautiously, taking their cues from the dog. Halo pressed Lily gently against his side, adjusting his paws as he sensed her shifting weight. He used the leverage of his body to keep her airway open, chest lifted slightly, head supported. The precision of his movements, calibrated to a child's fragile frame, left everyone in stunned awe. The judge, overwhelmed by the raw display of instinct and life-saving coordination, whispered under her breath, "I've never seen anything like this in my entire career." She gripped the edge of the bench, eyes wide, as Caroline quietly began giving instructions to Halo, soft and urgent. "She's almost through it. Keep her steady. You're doing perfect." Caroline's voice was filled with desperation and love. Halo responded with almost human-like comprehension, adjusting his weight, nudging her gently, his growl subsiding into a steady, reassuring hum. The courtroom seemed to exist in a strange temporal bubble. Time slowed as everyone watched the child and the dog, entranced by the extraordinary synchronization of instinct, training, and unwavering trust. The jurors leaned forward, some with tears forming in their eyes. Even the attorneys and journalists, normally trained to observe without emotion, were caught in the profound tension of the moment. Minutes felt like hours. Lily's body trembled less, her breathing gradually stabilizing. Halo remained alert, every muscle coiled, eyes scanning her face for any sign of regression. Caroline exhaled shakily, a tearful laugh escaping her as she whispered, "You did it. You kept her safe." The judge finally straightened, though still pale and visibly shaken. She looked down at Halo, then at Lily, and whispered to herself, This is beyond anything I imagined." She could see the depth of the bond, the unspoken communication, and the incredible instinct that had saved a child's life in real time. But even as relief washed over some in the courtroom, a lingering tension remained. The episode had subsided, but Lily's condition was volatile, unpredictable. Any moment could bring another collapse. Halo remained perfectly still, poised for instant response, eyes locked on his small human, ears alert, muscles coiled. The mother finally allowed herself to touch Lily, gently brushing hair from her damp forehead. The child leaned slightly into her mother's arms, safe for now, but Halo refused to move. He stayed pressed against her, a living shield, alert and unflinching. Judge Willis, still absorbing the magnitude of what had just happened, finally spoke in a low, steady voice, directing the entire courtroom. No one leaves, not until this child is fully stabilized and under professional care. Her authority was regained, but a tremor of awe and fear lingered in her voice. The courtroom exhaled collectively, though tension still crackled like electricity in the air. Witnesses, attorneys, journalists, and jurors could hardly believe the extraordinary display they had just witnessed. A 7-year-old girl communicating life-saving signals with a golden retriever, and the dog responding with exact precision to prevent tragedy. And as everyone processed the surreal scene, the judge realized something chilling. This was no ordinary dog, no ordinary child, and no ordinary situation. The courtroom had just witnessed a miracle, and it wasn't over yet. The courtroom was still vibrating with the tension of the near tragedy. Lily, now semi-conscious, rested lightly against Halo's golden chest, her small fingers gripping his fur in instinctive trust. The dog remained perfectly still, eyes alert, ears flicked forward, sensing even the slightest change in her body. Caroline Green wiped her tears hastily, hands trembling. She knew that what had just unfolded was extraordinary, but she also knew that the hardest part was yet to come, the truth. Judge Margaret Willis remained standing behind her bench, the gavel forgotten at her side. Her usually sharp, analytical eyes softened, tinged with disbelief and curiosity. She had seen medical emergencies before in her long career, but she had never witnessed a child and a dog communicate so seamlessly, so instinctively, to prevent disaster. Her voice, usually crisp and commanding, softened as she addressed Caroline. "Ms. Green," the judge said carefully, "I need to know exactly what we are dealing with. How long has this condition been affecting your daughter? And what exactly is this dog trained to do?" Caroline's chest tightened. She had never planned to disclose the full truth in court. Part of her feared that admitting the reality of Lily's condition would make the custody battle more complicated. She feared her ex-husband, who had long claimed that Halo was just a pet, would attempt to separate them legally. But now, with the entire courtroom having witnessed the miraculous coordination between child and dog, there was no hiding it. Taking a deep breath, she spoke, voice quivering. "Your Honor, Lily has a rare neurological disorder. It causes sudden autonomic shutdowns. Her body can collapse without warning, her breathing can stop, and sometimes she can even lose consciousness completely. Halo is trained to detect subtle chemical changes in her body that happen seconds before an episode begins. He alerts us and stabilizes her." Gasps rippled across the courtroom. The jurors leaned forward, journalists scribbled frantically, and even the attorneys, who had been debating legal technicalities moments ago, froze. The reality of the situation settled over the room like a heavy weight. Halo remained pressed protectively against Lily, his body coiled, ready to respond at a moment's notice. Judge Willis's hand trembled slightly as she tapped her pen against the bench. "And this training, it is only for emergencies?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Caroline shook her head. "No, Your Honor, it's more than that. Halo is trained to react to Lily's coded signals. She gives him subtle gestures, hand taps, circles, movements only he understands. They work together. He doesn't just alert us, he stabilizes her, protects her, and sometimes he keeps her alive until help arrives." A hush fell over the courtroom. The gravity of Caroline's words sank in. This was no ordinary service dog. This was a lifeline, a guardian, a silent protector who had been trusted to respond to a child's instincts in real time. The jurors exchanged astonished glances. The media whispered quietly to each other. The attorneys opened their mouths, but no words seemed appropriate. The judge exhaled slowly, her gaze fixed on Halo, then on Lily. "Why wasn't this disclosed earlier?" she asked, voice firm but layered with concern. "Why did the court only witness this now when it could have been catastrophic?" Caroline hesitated, swallowing hard. "I didn't want to jeopardize custody of Halo," she admitted, her eyes filled with tears again. "He's not just a dog, he's her lifeline. If my ex-husband knew how critical he is, he might have fought to separate them, and I couldn't risk that. I had to protect Lily, and Halo is her protector. I thought I could manage until now." The judge's expression softened, though the edge of frustration lingered. She had spent decades enforcing rules, maintaining fairness, and adhering to procedure, but the extraordinary circumstances in front of her tested every legal principle she had ever held. "And how long has Halo been trained to respond in this way?" she asked, her voice measured but incredulous. Caroline swallowed hard, glancing at her daughter. "Since she was 3, every emergency, every episode, he's been there. He understands her signals better than anyone, better than me sometimes." The courtroom was silent again, the weight of Caroline's words pressing on everyone. The jurors, attorneys, and spectators all understood that what they were witnessing was more than a simple custody dispute. It was a story of survival, trust, and extraordinary human-animal communication. Judge Willis's eyes narrowed slightly, focusing on Caroline. "So, you taught her the signals?" "Yes," Caroline said quietly. "She needed to know she could communicate with him, that she could have some control when her body betrayed her. I couldn't always be there immediately. Halo is her partner, her guardian, and she's been learning to guide him. I didn't realize she'd use it in court like this, but she did it instinctively." The judge exhaled slowly, pinching the bridge of her nose. She glanced at Halo, who remained coiled protectively around Lily, and then back at the child. Lily's eyes flickered weakly but steadily toward the judge, and she whispered something almost too soft to hear. "Don't worry, he'll keep me safe." The judge felt a lump in her throat. The courtroom was not just observing law in action anymore. It was witnessing courage, instinct, and the quiet miracles that sometimes exist outside textbooks and statutes. She realized that the legal system had been forced to recognize something bigger than rules: the human-animal bond, instinct, and the unbreakable trust between a child and her protector. The room remained tense. Halo shifted slightly but remained perfectly alert, as if aware of the gravity of the conversation. The paramedics, standing by cautiously, continued to monitor Lily, who was gradually regaining stronger breathing and clearer consciousness. Finally, the judge leaned forward, voice steady but heavy with emotion. "Ms. Green, I understand why this was kept from the court, but this changes everything. This child's safety is not negotiable. The law cannot separate a life-saving service animal from the person dependent upon it, not under these circumstances." Caroline felt a mixture of relief and anxiety. The acknowledgement from the judge was reassuring, but the exposure of Lily's condition and the stakes now fully laid bare made her nerves taut. She glanced down at Halo, who remained steadfastly by her daughter's side, and whispered, "We're going to be okay." But even as relief began to take hold, the courtroom collectively realized that the episode, miraculous as it had been, was not just an isolated incident. The subtle signals, the sudden collapse, and the precise intervention by Halo all pointed to an ongoing, unpredictable danger that could strike again at any moment. Judge Willis's voice cut through the room again, calm yet commanding. "We must proceed carefully. Lily's medical needs are paramount, and Halo, he will remain by her side." Her eyes softened as she looked at the child and the dog. "No court, no statute, no person will interfere with this bond. Not now, not ever." The courtroom exhaled collectively. There was awe, there was relief, but there was also lingering fear, because everyone knew that Lily's condition was unpredictable. Every signal, every twitch of her small hand was a reminder that life hung by a fragile thread, maintained by a dog's instinct, a child's courage, and a mother's protective vigilance. Caroline sank into her chair, exhausted but grateful. She had revealed the secret she never planned to tell, and in doing so had placed Lily's safety above everything else. She glanced at the judge, who nodded slightly, her own eyes glimmering with a mixture of respect and disbelief. And then, as the courtroom began to settle, Halo lifted his head slightly, ears forward, eyes sharp. Lily's small fingers twitched subtly, sending another faint, deliberate signal, a reminder that their extraordinary vigilance was far from over. And in that moment, Judge Willis realized, with a chill down her spine, that this story was only beginning. Even as the courtroom began to settle after the dramatic revelation, Halo remained unwavering. His massive golden frame pressed gently but firmly against Lily, muscles taut, eyes scanning every corner of the room. Any movement, any shift in the air, any sound that might threaten his small human companion drew his immediate attention. He was no longer just a service animal. In that moment he was a sentinel, a guardian, a living shield. Caroline Green's hands trembled as she brushed a strand of damp hair from Lily's forehead. "You did so well," she whispered, her voice breaking. But Halo's deep growl reminded her that this was no time for complacency. Even with the emergency subsiding, he refused to leave her side. He pressed closer, nudging her gently as if communicating silently, "I will not let you go." Judge Margaret Willis watched the scene, her gavel abandoned again, her usual judicial composure replaced by awe and something almost like reverence. She had overseen countless cases, witnessed human courage and tragedy, but she had never encountered anything like this. A child, a dog, and the unspoken language between them, so precise, so instinctual, so life-saving. It was a bond that defied explanation, a miracle in the middle of a courtroom. The jurors shifted uneasily, caught between the procedural expectations of the courtroom and the raw, almost cinematic drama unfolding in front of them. Some murmured to one another, eyes fixed on the golden retriever who refused to leave the girl's side. Even the lawyers, trained to remain impartial, paused, their arguments forgotten as the tension and emotion gripped the room. Caroline leaned down, voice low but firm. "Halo, I need you to stay here with her. Do not move. Understand?" The dog responded immediately, nudging Lily's shoulder gently with his nose as if acknowledging the command. He didn't budge, he didn't even blink. Every fiber of his being was focused on the child. Judge Willis's voice broke through, calm but tinged with awe. This dog cannot leave her, it's clear now. No rules, no statutes can separate them. The court recognizes the necessity of this bond. Her eyes flicked to the attorneys who exchanged glances. Even they understood this wasn't just a service animal, this was a lifeline. A child's life depended on it. The audience leaned forward, captivated. Cameras flashed subtly, capturing the extraordinary bond. Even the bailiffs and court staff were caught in the silent intensity of the moment. Halo remained motionless but alert, every muscle coiled as if anticipating another crisis. Caroline glanced around the room, heart pounding. "Do you understand?" she whispered to the judge. Every time she has an episode, every twitch, every subtle movement, Halo knows. He understands her body, her signals, and he reacts instantly. He's her lifeline, your honor. The judge nodded, swallowing hard. "I understand," she said, her voice soft but resolute. "And the court will ensure that this bond is protected. No one will separate this child from her dog. Not today, not ever." Lily's small fingers twitched once lightly, almost playfully. Halo reacted immediately, adjusting his posture, pressing his body closer to hers. It was as if the child's signal had become a ritual, a constant reassurance that he would always respond. The precision, the instinct, and the trust between them was unlike anything the courtroom had ever witnessed. Caroline exhaled slowly, relief and exhaustion mingling. She had feared this exposure would backfire, that revealing the secret of Halo's training and Lily's condition would complicate everything. Instead, It had reinforced the truth that her daughter's life depended on this extraordinary connection. Halo's refusal to leave her side was a testament to his devotion and to the child's unspoken commands that guided him. Judge Willis shifted, glancing at the attorneys. This changes the proceedings entirely. We must account for the child's medical needs, the dog's role, and the fact that any disruption to this bond could be catastrophic. Adjustments will be made immediately. She paused, her eyes scanning the courtroom. And everyone here must understand the gravity of what has just occurred. A murmur ran through the audience, but all attention remained fixed on Lily and Halo. The dog's eyes, dark and intense, flicked between his small human and the rest of the room. He exuded a calm authority, a presence that made everyone recognize he was in command of the situation. Caroline crouched beside Lily, brushing her hair back gently. "You're safe now," she whispered. "Halo's here, you're okay." Lily gave a small nod, barely perceptible, but Halo seemed to sense her relief instantly. He pressed closer, nudging her gently as if to say, "I've got you, always." The paramedics remained on standby, observing with quiet awe. One of them whispered to a colleague, "I've never seen anything like this, a child controlling a dog's instinctive responses in real time. It's incredible but also terrifying. One wrong signal, and it could have been disastrous." His colleague nodded gravely. "It's like watching a living, breathing emergency protocol being executed perfectly, but by a dog and a child." Judge Willis's gaze softened as she addressed Caroline directly. "Ms. Green, I want you to understand that the court is fully aware of the extraordinary circumstances. Halo will remain by Lily's side at all times in this building. No exceptions. Your daughter's safety is non-negotiable." Caroline nodded, swallowing a lump in her throat. "Thank you, Your Honor," she said softly. I can't thank you enough for understanding." The courtroom remained silent for a moment, the tension giving way to a mixture of awe, relief, and lingering fear. Everyone understood that what they had witnessed was extraordinary. A 7-year-old girl, a golden retriever, and a bond so powerful that it could stop the chaos of life in its tracks. And yet the danger was not gone. Lily's condition remained unpredictable. Every subtle signal, every twitch, every small movement of her fingers could indicate another emergency. Halo remained coiled, alert, and unyielding. Caroline whispered to him, voice soft but commanding, "Stay with her no matter what. You're not leaving her side. Do you understand?" Halo responded immediately, nudging Lily gently, pressing closer, eyes sharp. Judge Willis exhaled, glancing around the room. "Let this serve as a reminder to everyone here. In this courtroom, the law bends for life, instinct, and necessity. This bond, this partnership, is sacred." The courtroom collectively exhaled, though tension remained. Everyone understood the stakes. They were witnessing a life saved not by laws, rules, or protocols, but by instinct, training, and an unbreakable bond. And as Halo shifted slightly, adjusting his stance, ready for any emergency that might come, it became clear to everyone. This dog would never leave her side, and the courtroom would never forget the scene they had just witnessed. The courtroom's brief calm shattered with the sudden creak of the front doors. Caroline's heart skipped a beat. She hadn't expected anyone else to arrive, but the figure that stepped in caused her stomach to twist with anxiety. "Caroline Green," a firm voice called. Her ex-husband, Richard, had arrived, flanked by 2 stern-looking attorneys. His eyes locked on Lily, and a flash of anger and disbelief crossed his face. "I demand to know why I wasn't informed that my daughter's condition was this severe." Caroline instinctively stepped closer to Lily, positioning Halo between them. The dog stiffened instantly, growl low and warning, his golden body a solid barrier against any perceived threat. Lily clung to Halo instinctively, small hands gripping his fur, trusting him more than anyone else in the room. Judge Willis raised her hand, cutting through the tension. "Mr. Green, this is a courtroom. You will wait until the proper time to speak." Right now, we have a child recovering from a medical episode and a service animal performing life-saving duties. Your arrival does not override her safety." Richard's jaw tightened, but he did not advance further. Caroline could see his eyes flick toward Halo, and for the first time, she realized he understood the true magnitude of the dog's role. His face paled slightly as he witnessed the calm authority radiating from the golden retriever. Halo's growl was subtle but unmistakable. "Do not come closer." Caroline whispered to Lily, her voice trembling but firm. "Stay calm, sweetie. He can't hurt us. Halo's here." The child nodded slightly, eyes wide but trusting, fingers brushing Halo's fur as if drawing strength from the living shield beside her. The attorneys approached carefully, whispering back and forth. One of them finally spoke aloud, trying to maintain a tone of legal authority. "Your Honor, we insist on understanding why critical medical information was withheld. This could affect custody decisions." Judge Willis's eyes narrowed. Ms. Green has explained fully why disclosure was delayed. Her reasoning is sound. She protected her child's life. Any attempt to disrupt this child's safety will not be tolerated. Halo remains with her, period. Richard's face hardened and he stepped slightly closer, clearly testing the boundaries. Halo's body shifted, placing himself more firmly between Lily and Richard. The growl deepened, low and resonant. Caroline could feel the power in that sound, the undeniable presence of a protector who would not allow harm to come to his human. The courtroom held its breath. Everyone understood that this wasn't just a standoff. It was a battle of wills, one between a father's legal authority and a child's life-saving bond with her dog. The tension was palpable, like a live wire crackling in the room. Caroline's voice shook, but she remained firm. "Richard, step back. Halo is her guardian. Do not cross him. You are not in charge here." Richard's lips tightened into a thin line. He opened his mouth to respond, but Halo's stance was unyielding. The dog's growl, low and commanding, stopped him in his tracks. For a brief, frozen moment, the courtroom watched the silent conversation between man and dog, a living testament to instinct, training, and loyalty. The judge intervened decisively. "Mr. Green, the court has determined that the child's immediate safety supersedes all other concerns. Halo will remain with Lily at all times. Any attempt to separate them could be considered interference with a life-saving service animal." Richard's hands trembled slightly, a mix of anger, disbelief, and fear. He finally stepped back, glancing at the attorneys for guidance. Caroline exhaled shakily, squeezing Lily's hand as the child pressed closer to Halo. The dog, sensing the continued tension, did not relax. His muscles remained coiled, eyes fixed on Richard, every movement calibrated to protect. The paramedics and courtroom staff watched in silence. Even seasoned professionals accustomed to emergencies were captivated by the intensity of the scene. Halo's presence was commanding, unwavering. He was no longer just a dog in a courtroom. He was the living embodiment of vigilance, protection, and loyalty. Caroline whispered to Lily, soft and urgent, "He can't get to you. Halo's got you, always." Lily pressed her cheek against the dog's warm, steady chest, small fingers clutching fur, drawing comfort and safety from him. Judge Willis leaned forward slightly, voice steady and commanding. "This court acknowledges the extraordinary circumstances. Any attempts to challenge the child-dog bond at this time are overruled. We will review custody considerations with full understanding of her medical needs, but nothing will endanger her or Halo's role in her care." Richard's shoulders slumped slightly, the fight drained from him in the face of Halo's unyielding presence. He glanced at his daughter, eyes softening for the first time, a flicker of understanding passing across his face. This was more than legal authority. This was life and death. And he had just witnessed the unmistakable truth. Halo's loyalty was absolute. Caroline exhaled slowly, relief mingling with lingering fear. The danger had been diffused, but the tension in the room was still palpable. She knew this confrontation was just the beginning. There would be legal battles, questions, and scrutiny. But for now, Halo had kept Lily safe, and the court had acknowledged the bond that had saved her life. Lily's small fingers twitched once more, a faint, deliberate signal. Halo responded immediately, pressing closer, shifting his weight slightly to adjust to her needs. The courtroom fell silent again, everyone aware of the living miracle they were witnessing. Judge Willis's eyes softened as she addressed the room. Let this be a reminder: life, instinct, and the bonds we cannot fully understand must sometimes supersede procedure. The child's welfare is paramount. Halo will remain by her side at all times. This court recognizes the extraordinary service and protection he provides. A low murmur of agreement rippled through the audience. Even Richard, still tense, nodded slightly, understanding that no argument, no legal maneuver could replace what he had just witnessed. Halo's loyalty, instinct, and precision had not just saved Lily's life. They had asserted a truth stronger than law. Some bonds are beyond challenge. Caroline whispered again to Halo, voice soft but firm. We made it for now. You did it. You kept her safe. The dog responded with a gentle nudge of his nose, eyes unwavering, reminding her that the danger was never fully gone, that vigilance must continue. And as the courtroom exhaled collectively, a heavy mix of awe, relief, and lingering suspense settled over everyone present. No one would ever forget this day. A child, a dog, and a bond that defied logic had held firm against fear, doubt, and human authority. And yet, in the back of everyone's mind, a quiet question lingered. Could they withstand the next test? Could Halo protect her again if the unpredictable returned? The answer was uncertain. The trust, instinct, and courage were real, but the next moment could bring danger no one could anticipate. The courtroom seemed to hold its collective breath as the tension slowly, cautiously eased. Lily rested against Halo's warm chest, small fingers gripping his fur as though she were tethered to life itself. The golden retriever remained steadfast, alert and unwavering, muscles coiled like springs, eyes sweeping every inch of the room. Every subtle twitch from the child prompted a precise adjustment from the dog. It was a dance of instinct, training, and unspoken trust that left everyone silent in awe. Caroline Green's hands trembled, brushing damp hair from Lily's forehead. Her heart still raced, but relief mingled with profound gratitude. Halo had not just stabilized Lily, he had saved her life. And in doing so, he had demonstrated a loyalty and intelligence that transcended words, laws, and expectations. Judge Margaret Willis, pale but composed, finally rose from the bench. Her gavel lay untouched. It had no power here against the force of the living miracle before her. Let it be known, she said, her voice steady but soft with emotion, that this courtroom recognizes the extraordinary service provided by this animal, and more importantly, the life-saving bond between a child and her dog is sacrosanct. No one will interfere with it. Not today. Not ever. A hushed awe settled over the room. Spectators, journalists, jurors, and even the lawyers seemed caught in the enormity of what had just occurred. Halo shifted slightly, pressing closer to Lily, as if acknowledging the judge's words. He remained vigilant, the unspoken promise of protection clear in every line of his golden frame. Caroline exhaled shakily, voice barely audible. We made it, she whispered to Halo. The dog responded immediately, nudging Lily gently, his eyes soft but alert. It was the quiet acknowledgement of a mission completed, but also a reminder that vigilance was never-ending. Outside, the hum of cameras and murmurs of reporters hinted at the story that would ripple across the nation. A courtroom, a child, a dog, and a bond that had stopped a tragedy in real time. Caroline knew the media would sensationalize it, but for her, the significance was profoundly personal. This was about life, survival, and the unbreakable trust between her daughter and Halo. Lily, still weak but conscious, lifted her small hand and gently tapped Halo's snout, a subtle signal, almost imperceptible, that she was okay. Halo responded immediately, shifting his massive body to provide comfort and support, pressing his chest lightly against hers. The room seemed to inhale collectively, the intimacy of the gesture more powerful than any words spoken. Judge Willis leaned forward, gaze softening. "Ms. Green, I want you to understand that the court recognizes not only the necessity of Halo's presence but the extraordinary courage displayed by your daughter. She communicated, she led, and she survived thanks to the bond you've nurtured. This is beyond law. This is a testament to human and animal instinct." Caroline felt tears streaming down her cheeks. "Thank you, Your Honor," she whispered, voice trembling. "All I ever wanted was to protect her and to make sure Halo could always be by her side." A faint murmur of agreement rippled through the courtroom. Even Richard, her ex-husband, who had arrived earlier with anger and disbelief, now stood quietly, tension and respect in his eyes. He observed Halo, nodding the dog's unwavering vigilance, and for the first time seemed to grasp the depth of what he had underestimated. Lily's fingers twitched once more, a tiny, deliberate signal to Halo. He responded instantly, adjusting his posture, eyes locked on her, ears flicked forward. The child's trust, the dog's devotion, and the unspoken communication between them were now undeniable to everyone present. Caroline whispered softly to her daughter, "You did it, sweetie, you're safe. He's here. Always." Halo pressed closer, chest warm and steady, head resting lightly against Lily's arm. The room seemed to exhale with them, a collective acknowledgement of the life-saving miracle that had unfolded. Judge Willis cleared her throat, regaining her judicial authority. "Let the record show that the court fully acknowledges the extraordinary circumstances, the medical necessity, and the life-saving actions performed by this animal. Any future proceedings will account for this reality. The bond between child and service dog is protected under this court's authority." The room buzzed quietly with awe and respect, the jurors and spectators witnessing history in motion. Halo remained vigilant, every muscle coiled, every sense sharp. Even as relief settled, the underlying reality remained. Lily's condition was unpredictable, her signals subtle, and Halo's vigilance eternal. Richard stepped back quietly, finally nodding. Though his lips were tight, there was acknowledgement in his eyes, a recognition that the life he had once sought to control was now being protected by something far greater than authority or law. Caroline exhaled shakily, squeezing Lily's hand, the weight of the morning's events slowly settling over her. Outside the immediate tension, reporters and camera crews prepared to tell the story, but inside the courtroom, a quiet miracle had occurred, one that was intimate, profound, and intensely real. The cameras would capture images of a child, a dog, and a mother, but they could not capture the depth of instinct, training, and trust that had saved a life. Caroline's voice was soft but firm as she addressed the room, a declaration to everyone present. "This bond is unbreakable. Halo has kept her alive more times than I can count. He is not just a dog. He is her partner, her protector, and her lifeline. We will never be separated, and I will never allow anything to jeopardize her safety again." Judge Willis nodded solemnly, her voice firm. "The court acknowledges this declaration. The extraordinary circumstances witnessed today have reinforced the importance of instinct, trust, and life-saving partnerships. This child and this dog are inseparable. Their safety is paramount." Lily, still small and fragile, lifted her head slightly and whispered something faintly, almost to herself. "Thank you, Hale. I love you." The dog responded with a gentle nuzzle, pressing his head against her cheek, eyes soft but vigilant. The gesture was so tender, so human in its emotional weight, that even the hardened lawyers and officials felt a lump in their throats. Caroline knelt beside them, holding both her daughter and the dog close. "We're safe now," she whispered, voice breaking. "You're safe, always." Halo's steady breathing and calm vigilance reassured them both, a living shield and constant companion. Judge Willis, rising again, addressed the courtroom one final time. Let this day be recorded not only as a legal proceeding, but as a testament to extraordinary courage, trust, and devotion. May this story remind us all that life, instinct, and loyalty can defy expectations and surpass law itself. Today, a child survived because of a bond no one could break. Let it be honored, respected, and protected. The courtroom exhaled. Halo shifted slightly, still coiled protectively, but calm enough to allow Lily to lean comfortably against him. Caroline hugged her daughter tightly, grateful for the life-saving miracle they had just survived. The tension of hours collapsed into relief, awe, and an overwhelming sense of gratitude. And yet, as the courtroom began to empty, a quiet awareness lingered. Lily's condition remained unpredictable, Halo's vigilance eternal, and the unspoken signals that guided them were their private language, a bond that no law, no person, and no circumstance could ever break. The cameras would tell the story, the media would celebrate the miracle, but in the quiet of the courtroom, a child and her dog had sealed their destiny together. Life had been saved, trust had been honored, and a bond had been recognized as unbreakable, a story of courage, instinct, and love that would never be forgotten. Halo nudged Lily gently one last time, eyes unwavering. She clutched his fur, whispered softly, and the golden retriever pressed closer, ready for whatever life might throw next. The courtroom had witnessed a miracle, but for Lily and Halo, the miracle was just life itself, and it would continue, as long as they trusted each other, as long as the signals endured, and as long as the bond remained unbroken.